Paranormal King Radio Network, bringing you the best paranormal hosts and guests. Bringing you the best paranormal shows and features. Playing the top musical artists from around the world. Paranormal King Radio Network. With the best paranormal hosts and guests. The best in paranormal shows and features. Playing the best musical artists from around the world. Paranormal King Radio Network. The paranormal will never be the same.
You are listening to Paranormalities and Ponderings with the C.A.S.P.I.R Paranormal team. Brought to you by the Paranormal King Radio Network and hosted by Frank Lee. Join us for the next hour as we discuss ghosts, spirits, hauntings, and other worldly phenomena that has yet to be explained in the hopes of finding answers. This show is meant to be a resource for those of you who, like us, seek to find answers to the unknown. We hope you find it informative and enjoy the show. And once again, thank you for listening.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Paranormalities and Ponderings. I'm your host Frank Lee, and we appreciate you tuning in tonight. Got a great show in store for you, and got a great guest lined up. We have tonight Roger Belt from Half Past Dead Paranormal Investigations, and also from Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio. Roger, how are you tonight?
I'm just great. How about yourself?
I'm doing excellent. Can't complain a bit. And I'm glad to have you on the show tonight. I appreciate you coming on.
Hello, Cheryl.
So, I know you've got your show as well, the Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio, and the team's doing quite a bit.
It's called Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio, the paranormal and strange, and we dabble into all kinds of stuff. So,
right, I've noticed y'all do cover quite a few topics, not just with ghosts, but
we cover
everything.
Bigfoot, UFOs, all that kind of stuff. And we're going to be getting a little more into legends and mysteries.
That's awesome, and I like that kind of diversity with the show and with the team as well, because by definition, paranormal is anything outside of what can be typically explained.
Another accent. Who's that's my southern fried accent, folks.
Right, and for anyone that doesn't know, Roger is. He's one of my neighbors just a little bit to the north of me. So that will explain his accent. And so tonight, you got two Southerners on here that like to hunt ghosts. and I have to say, Roger, when I first talked to you about coming on the show, I'm going to tell on you a little bit. You gave me the best bio description that anyone has ever given me. And
you gonna make a brown man blush.
That when I asked Roger about when I asked Roger about his bio, he said, well, there's not much to it. I'm just an old country. He said, I'm just an old goat that likes to hunt ghosts. And that was, at that, I told him that was the best bio I've ever heard, because I have yet to hear anybody come close to one that creative. I mean, there's no way to top that.
Well, I mean, I'm a country boy. I live down here in West Tennessee, and uh, we're not fancy down here. I don't even have all the fancy equipment that these high tech groups have and everything, but you don't really need it.
That's right. I'll agree with that.
Would I love to have a FLIR? Yeah, I would, but I'd love to have about $5 grand I can spend on something else too.
That's right. That's right. You sound quite a bit like me on that. I would love to have the money set aside that I can spend and everything on something like that. So I definitely can relate to that. But you're in such a good area because for Tennessee you've got so much history there.
There's places that and it's on my bucket list. I gotta say, in fact, there's some down there around you that's on my bucket list, like Sloss Furnace and places like that. But it's not really about going where everybody's been and all the big places and making a name or anything like that. I got in this basically to answer questions for myself and to help people. And so, if I get to go, we did a hospital up in Fayetteville recently, and it wasn't, a client call like, yeah, come help us, we're having all these problems. No, it's just it was the regional hospital, and they shut it down, built a new one. And the history of it is basically it was a college from like 1909 to 1925, I think. And then the hospital took it over and tore down some of the original, rebuilt, and it's 3 stories and a basement. And we didn't get a lot of activity. I was surprised, but I did get one EVP that I managed to bring out. It was like a child going, ooh.
Right. And I love the fact that you're saying that, because you don't hear many teams anymore say,
exactly.
We went to this place and we didn't get crap there.
Well,
I'm glad that I'm glad to hear that for a change. That is, that is such a nice change of pace.
That is one of the things that always gets me is when people they find out that you are a paranormal investigator and they're like, oh, I always wanted to do that. Let me join up with your team and stuff. And they go on one investigation with you, and if you don't get nothing, they're like, well, I got something to do. I can't go on this next one, or they'll make excuses, and you don't always get something.
Right.
You can't beat that into people's head enough. You don't always get evidence. Now, the majority of the time, I will get, like the hospital, I did get one EVP, and usually you'll get 1 or 2 EVPs, but you're not going to get like an apparition around every corner.
Exactly.
And also, people need to realize that ghosts don't play on cue. If they don't want to show, they're not going to show.
That's right. I agree. And, I really believe that in a way that's insulting to them when people go in and expect them to perform on cue, and when they don't, automatically go into provocation.
Everybody gets upset, and yeah.
And Kat in the chat room has a good point. Says they don't perform either, and
exactly.
I agree with that. And I have a question from the chat from King there, who was asking about the big O word, and well,
The big old word.
right, the big O word that's only four letters. Orbs. What's your take on orbs?
You really want me to say that? I have a philosophy.
You know I'm
on
gonna go
orbs.
there.
I have a philosophy on orbs, and most of the people that know me know my philosophy on orbs. When an orb comes up to my face and says, "Hey, Raj, I'm an orb entity," then I'll put it down as evidence. If it don't, or it don't turn into an apparition in front of my eyes, it's a piece of dust, a bug, what have you.
Right, right, and that's what I've heard quite a few people say is to, in case of orbs, break out the orb repellent, and
Yeah, there you go.
they'll show a can of Pledge.
Yeah, I never thought of that.
So
I'm going to have to do an ad with that on it now just because you said that.
we'll have to work that one up.
Yeah, I know just the person I'd send that one to.
Well, yep, we'll definitely get that one set up. And here it is. We're supposed to be doing a radio show, and me and you are too busy conspiring. That's bad.
There you go. Yeah.
Now everyone listening, you see what happens when a couple of country boys from the South get together, right?
But no, I mean, I love what I do, and we don't do a lot. We're not constantly, out investigating and everything, but that's fine. I do the radio show every week, and when a call comes in or we get a place like the hospital up there, we're off and running, And if we get terribly bored, I know where a few good cemeteries are. So we're we're never without if we really want to get out and do something.
Right. And now, I know that you recently done the hospital. Now, how many cases would you say that y'all take on that are like private residences or businesses that like the help cases?
Around here, there's really not a lot of them. I think most people are scared to admit that they have something like that going on because the first thought that enters their head is, well, if I get somebody to come over here and everything and, the neighbors see it, they're going to think we're nuts.
Right.
So, it's kind of slow around here most of the time. And then every now and then you'll get one that you wish they hadn't called you in the first place. We read the last residence that we did was one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And how can I say this without sounding like I'm a nut? Our team leader, our team founder, who is Dusty Ward, he's a good friend of mine, real great guy, another one of your Southern boys. We were investigating this place in the next town over from us there. It was kind of a little bit out in the sticks. And it was a double wide. Now, when I got there, I walked around and the guy was showing me this, that, and the other thing. We were out in the backyard, out by the tree line where he claimed this stuff was going on, right? I turn around and the first thing I see is two telephone poles, one on each side of their trailer with a big transformer on it. Bing!
Exactly.
EMF out the, 90% of what was going on within was probably from that. But I got to tell you about the snake. Okay, and our founder, like I said, Dusty's a great guy, right? Always willing to do anything to help a client.
Right.
Well, I was in, I think, one of the front rooms. I was in there doing some EVP or something, and he was in there with with the lady that lived there, and they were in like the little utility room where the back door is. Now, up on the shelf, and tell me how this is up on this shelf, right? But up on the shelf is a little tree, or it's a tree, and wrapped around this tree is a 15-foot invisible anaconda. And yes, I did say invisible anaconda.
Wow.
Okay, she says, it's wrapped around that tree. Well, he's trying to help her out, right? So he reaches up there and he acts like he's grabbing this snake. And he's got his hands like maybe 6 inches apart, you know. He says, am I getting it? She says, no, it's bigger. So he spreads his hands out and he's showing us demonstrating how he got the snake, right? And that was so hilarious watching him demonstrate how he got the snake and got it out of the house. But anyway, and so then he opens his fingers up to about 10 inches apart, right? And he says, have I got it? Yeah. So he unwinds this imaginary snake from around the tree. And he's got it. And she says, you don't have it by the head. It's biting you right now. Okay, so he moves his hands up a little, like he's moving his hands up a little further. He goes, have I got it? And she's like, yeah. And he goes, open the door. She says, what? He says, open the door. I can't let go of this snake. So she opens the door, and he drags this invisible 15-foot anaconda out of the house. Okay, now he's telling her that that he's got the spirit of a dead convict because he works at the prison. And he says, all right, convict, kill that snake for her. Okay, so he says, you ain't got to worry about it. Convict's going to kill the snake. It ain't going to come back in your house no more. And this was after we left the house. We stopped up in town at the McDonald's and just kind of pulled over the parking lot. We was all out there talking. We were laughing so hard. And he's demonstrating how he got the snake out of the house, and he's doing all the movements and everything. And I laughed so hard I had tears running down my face. This was one of those cases that you'd rather they hadn't called.
Right.
You know, and her husband is showing him around, right? Well, they go in the bedroom where supposedly stuff's going on in there. Mm-hmm. So he's showing him spots where things are supposed to be happening. He pulls this drawer up, says, this is where we keep all our drugs.
Right. So now, did the husband see the snake too? I have to.
Well, I don't know if he saw the snake. He wasn't in there when she was showing Dusty the snake, so I don't know what he was doing at that time. But it was so funny, you know. I mean, in a way, I was kind of glad because I needed a good laugh, but in a way, I wish they hadn't called because I could have found something better to do.
Well, but at the same time, that you can't find anything much more entertaining
That is true.
than wrestling a 15-foot ghost anaconda.
Right. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, ghost or no, anacondas live in the rainforest where the water is, right?
Well, I think rainforest and tropical regions of Tennessee.
Well, we weren't in a tropical region, I promise.
Right.
Now, Reelfoot Lake's about an hour away and everything. We should have told them, wouldn't we? Yeah, we'll take it down to Reelfoot Lake and turn it loose, you know, and that's the humane way to get rid of an invisible snake.
Right. right. As long as the invisible snake is humanely disposed of, you don't
Exactly.
Right, because you don't want to get PETA involved or anything like that, because that you know they take the way that you treat invisible animals very seriously.
But anyway, that was one of the more funnier ones that we did, and we did one over there, same town, where it's a little bitty house. Mm-hmm. But now this kept going on and on and on. They kept calling us, you know, you need to come back. We got portals in here, blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, the first time we went, we find out that the daughter mm-hmm. is gifted. Okay? Mm-hmm. And now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying anybody can't be.
Right.
You know, I have friends that are psychic mediums that I believe in wholeheartedly. Cheryl's one of them. Right. But, and this girl, I believe she might have actually had a little bit of something going on. But where it started getting funnier and funnier is when you find out that everybody in the house was gifted.
Oh, wow.
And they weren't, how do I say this? Her daddy and her stepmother. So the stepmother, and it started getting real funny because she said, this was the first time we went over there. They were all gifted, and all this was going on, and we, with the help of the daughter and everything, crossed all these ghosts over and everything, and everything was supposed to be cool. We left. Well, then we get a call back, and I didn't go on the second call. Dusty went. Him and another guy went. But anyway, then me and another guy went over there.
Right.
And the stepmother's telling me, well, the Native American spirits in my family didn't know that I knew I had the gift.
Right.
But now that they know I have the gift, they're going to give me more gift.
Okay.
And I'm telling him, I'm like, we got to be at that house over there, in about 30 minutes or so. We're gonna have to get out of here because I had to go before I busted out laughing.
Right.
And the poor girl, I felt sorry for her because, like I said, I don't think, and I'm not saying this in a bad way. I don't think elevator went all the way to the top. Okay?
Right.
For the best way I could say that. So the stepmother and the dad, I'm sure, took advantage of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, and then I think Dusty said he got called to come back over there again, and the girl's telling him that she's got 7 portals, or was it 11? I can't remember. It was a bunch of them in her bedroom. Well, her bedroom was about the size of an average small bedroom. It was probably 10 by 12, maybe.
Right.
With a little closet in there. And she's telling him, yeah, there's portals all in this room, and there's one in the closet, and I kept hearing stuff scratching on there's something there scratching at the wall. And he said, I opened the closet door up, the first thing I see is a mouse hole.
Right.
He said, I know what's scratching at the wall.
So you found the portal.
Yeah, he said, I found the portal. He said it was about 2 inches around. But anyway, that just shows you what you run into, and you know as well as I do, you probably run into some of this stuff too.
Right. Well, that's like you mentioned, the one case with where there was the mobile home, and directly next to it's the huge power transformer, and they had the high EMF readings. That I've seen. There was a case that we helped someone with not too long ago. That this was a woman that was having hallucinations, and she was, or well, she we later found out it was hallucinations. Now, this was a call that we'd got from out of state.
Was she claiming to be possessed or something? Or
She felt that something was trying to possess her, and that she was coming under physical attack. And she was seeing all kinds of things in her house, and she could hear them running around, and they were in the walls and everything else. So, and of course, now she was quite a ways out of state. She was all the way in Michigan. So, and of course, me being here in Alabama, that's quite a ways to go for a case. So I got in touch with a friend of mine up there that handles cases, and he covered it for me. And they went in, found out that the apartment she was in, the wiring was horrible. And
Cheryl said she needed a tinfoil hat.
Right. It was it was about one step short of that, and said that because of the wiring and electrical issues, the EMS in the place were horrible. And you know as well as I do that the high EMFs in themselves can cause hallucinations,
Exactly.
can cause headaches, illnesses, all kinds of stuff. And you mix that, well, not only did they find the high EMFs, the apartment should have been condemned. They found all kinds of black mold, a
Ooh.
rat infestation, roach infestation. That said that it was one of the worst places they'd ever been in, and couldn't believe that someone was actually living in there. And this woman was, she was an elderly woman that was half blind, and she was in pretty bad shape physically anyway. And
That automatically would make you feel bad for somebody, you know.
right, and so and he actually stepped in and you know basically made made the landlord, he reported it so that the landlord had to correct the problems. As soon as the landlord fixed the problems, she quit experiencing paranormal activity.
Right. And EMFs are, it's crazy what they can do.
Oh
You
yes.
you can have a ceiling fan running that's putting off EMF, you wouldn't know it.
Hmm.
But if you're sleeping in there or you're sitting, anywhere close to there, you're going to start getting the heebie-jeebies, like, something's watching me, or, I know something's in here, and you'll start thinking all kind of stuff. EMFs have been known to make people itch and scratch and everything else, high or whelps break out and stuff like that. So,
Right. Well, one of the first questions when I'm talking to clients, when if they tell me that they feel like something's watching them in their sleep or maybe
no
approaching
kidding,
them.
I haven't been to Lafayette Cemetery. I'd like to go.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
oh, that's all right. Um, one of the first questions I normally ask them is if they plug their phone up on a charger on a
Right.
nightstand next to their bed, or if they have any electronics immediately next to their bed, and if
Yep.
there's a TV going close to it, what's in their room, or what's in their bedroom within a few feet of the bed. That I'll start asking those kind of questions. And a lot of times I've found that when they take the electronics out of the bedroom, or even move them across the room, that can make a huge difference.
It will, and if you live in an older house, especially where they have the old wiring, it's not very well shielded, and I mean, it's really easy to develop a fear cage,
Hmm.
and like in a basement or anything like that where they're exposed, because you don't have a ceiling up there or anything, insulation, nothing like that.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, you'll have people saying, they have something in their basement. There's something down there. Or every time they go down there, they feel like they're being watched, or they feel the hair stand up on their arms, stuff like that. Well, you got a lot of bare wires down there, and if it's old wiring like that, it's not shielded anyway,
Hmm.
and it will develop or make you develop all kind of crazy ideas.
Right. Right. Well, if you look at the way that the moisture holds in any of the waves that are put off by it,
Yeah,
and the masonry is going to hold it. Those waves don't pass through it easily. A lot of them are reflected, so it's bouncing off the walls and just kind of trapped in there.
right.
And then the shielding on a lot of the old wiring is just cloth and paper.
That's
So,
what I'm saying. It's not, they're not shielded very well,
hmm.
and in a basement, especially, like I said, where you have the open floor joist above you and everything, and the wires are running up under there, and they're out in the wide open.
Right, and then everybody's grown up seeing all the movies where everything bad that's going to happen typically is going to happen in the basement anyway. So
Right.
there's already that ambiguity programmed in the back of your mind anyway.
Glad them people with the snake didn't have a basement.
Right. Well, I don't think I don't think invisible snakes really like basements anyway. They like dry places. well, so I have to ask, talking about some of these cases, what would you say was the most active location that you've investigated?
uh, Let me see. Well, actually, we did a little house in the next town over. We've done three over there, actually. The first one that we done, we did capture a transparent entity on our DVR camera.
Oh, wow.
And it's like I said, it's pretty transparent. But if you pay close attention, you can tell it's a human form. You can see it actually turn like it's going to go out the door. And I got a EVP. Well, actually, I got about three. One of them I didn't understand why, but I got one, and it was a kid. And the funny thing was, there were no kids in the house. They have a baby that sleeps in the room, and that's where we caught the entity on the camera. It was faced on the crib where they said the baby would wake up like about 3 o'clock in the morning screaming. But anyway, I got it. I was coming through out of the living room because I just went and checked on one of our cameras that was set up in there, and I was coming into the little hallway before you get into the dining room area there. And I said, okay, y'all need to talk to me. And I got a kid saying no, just as plain as day.
Huh.
And I got another one that sounded like two women talking. And they were saying, we got money.
Wow.
And I don't know why, because nothing wasn't said about money. And then I got one that said love. And it was like in a male raspy voice. So really, there was a lot going on in there. It didn't really start happening till about, I'm gonna say it was probably getting close to 2 o'clock, maybe in the morning. And then there's a cemetery that's way out in the country. It's grown up. It has no name, but I got the picture of the lady in red. That's where I got that at, or we got that one at.
Right.
I showed you that. Right? Okay, that's where we caught that at. And of course, the dog-looking thing on the tombstone slab that I couldn't figure out what the heck it was really, but it looked kind of like a black and white dog.
Right. It was definitely strange looking. I will say that.
And when we take pictures, like I said, we always look first, and then we'll take a picture. Mm-hmm. Well, when we looked, in both of those cases where we got the lady in red and the dog-looking thing, when we looked, you didn't see anything. Mm-hmm. When we took the picture, they showed up.
Right.
So, I mean, that's really kind of strange, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and that brings me. That brings another point to mind for me. The other day we were talking about the cameras, the digital cameras, and
right.
Some of the older cameras, the Polaroids, and when everyone was using the 35 millimeters and everything else. And I was going to ask you your opinion on what your personal preference is for your investigations as far as still photography goes.
I have a little Samsung digital that I use. And people didn't used to think digital cameras was good for that, but I don't have any problems with mine. The only problem that I have with mine is in the view window. When you take the picture, you have the view screen on the back. And the picture will only stay there for a couple of seconds. And then if you want to look at it again, you got to pull it up in the thing, Well, if I'm taking pictures at the time, I'm not going to want to go into my library and look at the pictures and everything. I'll wait till I get done, when I get home, and then I'll look at my pictures. I'll usually pull them all up on the computer and look at them, where I can see them in bigger size, but that's what I use for my stills. And I have two Sony Handycams. They're the little mini DVD Handycams that I use. That I use besides the DVR system. And I have have booster lights that I run with them because, as you know, Sony's night shot ain't what it used to be.
Right.
So you have to have a little extra, especially if you're in pitch dark. You ain't gonna see a thing unless you got a booster light.
Right. And that was kind of interesting the other day when we were talking about the way that Sony came about with their recall with the night shots.
Right. I thought that was hilarious too.
For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about there, when the night shots first came out, they were extremely powerful, and they were so powerful, in fact, that if you were in well lit conditions and turned on the night shot mode, given the right clothing, you could see through that clothing. And when people discovered this particular feature, needless to say, that camera became very popular, especially with guys that wanted to go to places like the beach or just the mall, whatever. There were a lot of guys that bought handy cams with the night shot, and when Sony put out the recall, I forgot how many million of them got sold, and during the recall they only got a few thousand of them back. It's quite hilarious because the price of them actually went up.
And if you look them up on eBay or anywhere, you're going to see them running $500 or more. These are old cameras.
Right. They went up where now the night shot cost just as much, if not more, used as it did when it was new.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Because the paranormal investigators all want them because the night shot is such a powerful night vision, and you still have people that want them for the other little side effect of that feature.
Right.
But
dirty old Ben.
Right. and I'll throw this out there too. A lot of paranormal investigators like to wear the all black T-shirts and
right,
and all the dark clothing and stuff like that on investigations.
Make them look cool.
Right. If you're wearing that and you're using a decently powerful infrared camera, you should be mindful what undergarments you choose to wear.
Exactly. You better wear some black ones.
Right, because certain ones will show straight through on the camera. So just a little heads up on that.
And like I said, I wear like white T-shirts and stuff. I don't go through all this dress in black and look like you're straight out of Taps on Sci.Fi or something,
Right. I seen a picture the other day that it showed a picture of I think it had the guys from Ghost Adventures on there, and
we can get into a whole nother topic on that one.
Right, and I think it had them on there, and then it had like a rock band on there, and it said which one is the rock band and which one is the are the paranormal investigators, and the way it looked, the way they were all lined up and standing, you couldn't really tell the difference. They were dressed and posed about the same in the pictures.
Hey, we're being warned here. Donald said this is a family show, guys.
That well, all we can say is, we're putting information out there for, preventative use now. If anyone misuses that, we can't be responsible.
So they don't get their unmentionables put on camera,
Right. And we'll have to put a disclaimer out there.
There you go. Yeah. Don't do this at home, folks.
Right. But so covering the cameras and stuff, that I'm sure you can recall the days when everybody was saying that digital photography would never be accepted as
right. That's what I was saying earlier.
right, is paranormal as useful in paranormal, and now it's changed so much. And we also talked about
Thanks, Donald.
yeah, and we also talked about the audio. How everything's gone to the digital audio now. But
Right.
and when we're talking about that, you brought up a very good point about the mechanical cassette recorders. And if you
The
could,
little analogs, I love mine.
hmm
Like I said, I get more EVPs on my little analog recorder than I do my digital, hands down.
right, and the point that you had made talking about, a lot of people have steered away from them because you get the tape hiss in the background and everything.
Exactly. What
And
people don't realize, though, is that motor running in the background when you're recording creates a white noise effect
mhm,
that gives spirits more to connect with than a digital. Digital don't put that out. So, you're running your digital recorder and your white noise, whatever you got it on. If you're using white noise, you're going to have it playing on something. With a digital recorder, you don't have to do that.
right, we were talking about that because like I'd mentioned to you, the very first recorder I used was a $20 Radio Shack micro cassette. And I jokingly said how happy I was when I upgraded from my Radio Shack brand to the
Right.
Olympus Radio Shack brand.
I think mine's a Sony. I'm not sure.
Right. And it's kind of funny. Everybody now will go out and spend $100 on a digital, then
Exactly.
spend
Yeah.
$50 on a noise generator and
That's
everything
what I
else.
was saying. Yeah.
So that was that was an excellent point that you brought up.
And I also I build my own EM pumps, and it is I won't say it's a fact, but it's a well-known thing in the paranormal field that they will use EMF to communicate through to uh,
Hmm.
manifest whatever. And I got the schematics off of YouTube. It's just a little bitty thing, but it does put off enough EMF to max out a K2 meter.
Right. Right. And that's something that I try to encourage people to do as well, is to, when they can, build their own equipment, because the schematics are there, and a lot of times it's broken down to be so simple that even if you don't have a lot of
Tech
background,
savvy, you can still do it.
right, right,
I built two of them, and the first one it worked, but it needed a little work. And the second one I did was really good. It worked great. And it's basically just a little motor with a rare earth magnet on it, and an on-off switch, and a little light that tells you it's running.
hmm
And the whole box is about maybe 2 inches long by an inch and a half wide by about an inch tall. But it does work. I mean, I put the K meter up to it; it'll max it out.
absolutely. And just for reference, if you had to guess, for anyone who's thinking about doing this themselves, just off the top of your head, ballpark figure, how much would you guesstimate that it probably cost you to build one
I
yourself?
spent. I bought four of the rare earth magnets on eBay, and I spent like $6.
Wow.
And then the little case cost a couple of dollars, so that's $8. And I took the motor out of a old hard drive,
Hmm.
or not a hard drive, but an old CD player out of a computer. The
The,
disc.
the little servo.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna say roughly about $10 tops that I spent actually on parts that I had to buy. It's always good to run a resistor between your switch and your main wire. So, I bought the resistors and the magnets and the little LED lights and the box. I probably spent a total of maybe $10, and they do work. So,
right. So there you go. For anyone listening, instead of going to these websites, spending $50, $60, $100.
And you can get bigger and better, of course. But my next project is I was going to do one of the little sensory devices, and I found a schematic on there, and what they used was the bottom of a CD disc spool, and they mounted the parts on the little stem that comes up, and then some of them on the base there, and it will work if you, as much as you can set it on a table, and if you barely tap on that table, it'll light that thing up.
Right.
So, they do work. That was going to be one of my next projects, but I ain't got around to doing that yet.
Right, and that's definitely something that comes in handy, and you can make so much cheaper, because everybody knows that all of us paranormal investigators are loaded with money and don't have full-time jobs, and we have money to blow, so
I got so much money I throw it away half the time.
Right. I use it to light the barbecue grill and
yeah.
start the fireplace up and all that good stuff.
No, actually, for everybody out there, I'm a disabled person. I have a fixed income, so I don't have a lot of money to spend. But you don't need a lot of money. You can do it yourself a whole lot cheaper than what you can go out and buy it for. And I'm going to throw this out there, because a lot of people don't think and do this anymore because all this fancy tech equipment. But, if you have a claim of footsteps going down a hallway, everybody wants to run out and buy those sensors that you put on both sides of the hall. Well, if it goes through there to set this off, how much did you spend for that?
Right.
You could throw some talcum powder on the daggum floor. If something walks through there, you're going to see the footprint.
And that is something that was used
old school,
right? Right. That's when you're getting back to the basics.
Exactly, but you can. That's what I'm saying. You don't need to spend a fortune, and you don't have to have all the high dollar equipment to get good evidence. You really don't.
Right. And think about it. What is, you can go to a dollar store or something and pick up some of the powder for like $1 or $2 versus tying up nearly $100 in a geophone.
Exactly. That was the name of what I was trying to think of, geophone. That's what I was going to build, but and I'll get around to it one of these days. King says, does the infrared camera the best equipment in ghost hunting? One of the best things you can have, and that's one thing I will spend a little bit of money on, is an infrared camera, because you can't see in the dark without it.
I would agree.
And you don't want to use flashlights, because that defeats the whole purpose. Why are you going to go investigate in a dark place if you're going to have flashlights on?
I definitely agree with that.
Cheryl says she has a thermal. Well, good for you. I want one. Send that booger right on over to my house.
That the thermal is it comes in handy.
I just saw your comment there.
Oh, yeah. For anyone listening that's not in the chat, we're talking about money, and I just posted a comment in the chat. I said my ship finally came in, but I was stuck at the airport.
I always said when my ship came in, it'd be a little rowboat with a hole in
it. Right, it'd be the dinghy.
Yeah. Be like the one on the Andy Griffith show where they captured a criminal because he went out in the boat with a hole in it.
Right. Right. And that's why I love putting out this kind of information about how to save money and, you know, do your own equipment and not tie up everything, not fall for every gimmick that you see out there, because there are plenty. There's so many.
And the ghost hunter stores out there, they're in it to make money, people. I don't care what they say.
Right. There's so many things that it's the same thing that they sell at Walmart, you know, the hardware stores, whatever. They'll slap ghost hunting on the label, jack up the price, and
I'll tell you a little secret. You can go to Walmart and buy a infrared battery operated field camera that you strap to a tree, infrared.
yes,
And you can mount that sucker anywhere you want it, and it will take pictures of anything that passes by it.
yes. We
And
actually
it runs
use
you about
those.
$100, which is not bad for a good, battery powered camera that you ain't got to run cables to or charge all the time. Well, you just change the batteries in them.
Yep, we actually use those. I had to give props to Donald. He came up with that idea, and
And it's a good idea.
yes, he came up with that idea about a year ago, and we have had some fantastic results with those. And it you know it really it really does a wonderful job. And a lot of people don't know, but you can take video or still images with them, either one.
Right, exactly.
So, but yeah, I love putting out these money saving ideas because, you know, like we were joking about before, you know, there are very few people that do paranormal investigation full time. Most of us work full time jobs. Most of us are on tight budgets. We're having to struggle to buy that equipment, and so why struggle so much if you don't have to? You know.
Well, the thing about it is the money that you spend on that real fancy, expensive equipment could be spent for fuel to go to, the next place you're going.
Exactly.
If you were going, like when we went to Fayetteville, it was a 3.5 hour trip up there and 3.5 hours back. We spent probably about 120, $40 in gas.
Right. Right. And especially because I know that you don't just investigate locally. You do some fairly extensive traveling, and that can add up fairly quick because just your fuel costs, then you've got your lodging and
Well, you got that, you got your food, you got your lodging, you got, and you don't know what other little surprises are going to lay in wait, like you might have a blowout or, or what, there's always something.
exactly. And for something about the area you're in, there's a ton of history there. You've got your Civil War history, your Native American history. There are so many there's a lot of sightings of your cryptozoological creatures in that area. And
Right. My daughter lives right across from a Civil War cemetery.
oh wow.
I
And
mean, it's not just Civil War. There's, other people's buried there, but it has a part that is just a Civil War cemetery from back, during that time.
right. So I imagine that with your group focusing on such a broad spectrum of the paranormal, I can imagine with your location it does kind of keep you busy in that aspect of it. Because I
So, I
know
mean,
I
we're
know
always looking for new places to go, and, if we don't have calls coming in, for personal cases, that's like the hospital up there. We got an email, hey, y'all come up and check out my hospital. Okay. So we did.
right.
And, I want to go to the Bell Witch Caves. I said, well, but they won't let you take cameras in there.
Oh really? I did not know that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that kind of blew that one up. I'm like, well, I don't know so much if I want to go up there now or not. What good would it do if you see something you can't take a picture?
Right. That's strange. I did not know that because that's always been one of the places that I've wanted to check out.
exactly. And there's a mansion in Dover that I want to check out too. Uh, it's going to be a little difficult because the lady that owns it, she's an elderly lady. She doesn't live there, but she won't let nobody. They got a piss around that thing. She won't let nobody in there. I don't know why. Well, yeah, dude, because people going in there and trashing the place probably. But and see, that's another thing is other people can mess things up for decent teams to be able to get into places.
Yes.
Dover also has the Civil War battleground up there where they had the cannons on the river. And I've been there with my family, just because I'm into the Civil War stuff anyway. And actually, we've been up there a couple of times. I never even actually thought about going up there, and I don't know if they'll even let you go up there at nighttime anyway. But I would love to go in there with some equipment and everything, and just see if I could capture anything going on in there. I'm sure there's got to be some kind of residue left over from that.
Right. I would agree. Now, something I'm curious about. I know there's quite a few Civil War reenactments in the area.
They have one about it's probably about 12, 14 miles from me.
Have you ever got to go in behind one of those reenactments or during one?
We were there actually when they did one, and they had the tent set up and everything, and the old footlockers they used back then. It was pretty neat how it all works. But we were there. I want to say we probably got there toward the end of it, and of course I'm looking to see if there's any real stuff following along behind them,
Right.
And I have my digital with me, and I did take some pictures, but I didn't get anything, unfortunately.
Oh.
Now, if I ever make it, I want to go to Chickamauga, and I want to go to the big one, of course.
Right. Now, I have been to Chickamauga, and that one, we didn't get a lot of results as far as on film, but there's a lot of energy there, I guess you'd say.
Right, and you may not get anything on your recorders, and you may not get anything on your cameras, but I guarantee you're going to have some personal experiences in places like that.
Right. It was one of those places where you just walk up and you can kind of feel it in the air, so to speak. And Tunnel Hill is an interesting place. So is Murfreesboro.
Yeah, I've been up through there, and I didn't get to go to. And I went to Waverly Hills, and for any of you that don't know, Waverly Hills Sanatorium is over in Louisville, Kentucky. That is an awesome place, and it's huge.
And I've got to ask your opinion on what do you think about the current plan with it, where it's recently been sold, and the plans are to renovate it and make it into a hotel.
I think they're idiots.
That's about what I think.
I mean, I was in the morgue, and it was me and another guy went up there, and I got on that little thing and had him slide me up in the body freezer. They had a couple of the freezers and little freezers in there. They kept bodies in, until they stored them, I guess, forever. But he shoved me up in there, and I'm laying in there, and I had my digital recorder. I wish I'd have had my other one, but I had my digital recorder, and I'm laying in there, and I said, "Is there anybody here with me?" And I got just as plain as the nose on your face, "I'm with you."
Oh, wow.
And then we were in the death tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have a bum leg. By the people that know me on here, heard me talk about it. I have a clotted artery in my leg, so it makes it hard on me walking. And so we only went about halfway down in the death tunnel. We sit down there and we were just sitting there doing EVP and, snapping some pictures and stuff like that, which we didn't see anything in the pictures, and I had my recorder running and it did not pick it up, and I was so mad.
Oh, I can imagine.
But I'm sitting there and you hear coming from the bottom up, heel to toe, boot steps.
Oh, wow.
And this guy that's with me, he says, I've been in concrete work a long time. That's the concrete settling. Concrete don't settle heel to toe. It just don't, And I played that recorder back and it wasn't on there, and I was so mad. I'm like, dang, that would have been like, the holy grail of footsteps right there,
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't pick it up. And I was so upset.
Right, that's always the worst when you have something so loud. We did a case last year that was like that. All of us were outside this house, and it wasn't a very big place, but everyone was outside, and we hear these footsteps so loudly that we're all outside and we hear the footsteps plainly inside the house.
Ain't nobody's in there.
And nobody's in there at all. And, so I was around at the side of the house. There was a couple of investigators on the front porch. And I was looking at the basement, or not the basement, but the little cellar up underneath the house. And I heard it, and it sounded like someone running across the house. And when that happened, I went around to see who was running across there, and there was no one in there. It that loud. You could feel the floor vibrating. And of course, I thought when we played it back, it would be just this huge, thunderous footsteps. And of course, it picked it up, but it was, just barely heard it on the recorder. It was strange. And then that's always frustrating.
Okay, people, I can't spell, but I'm trying to spell Missouri here. But
M-I, crooked letter.
yeah. Anyway, I'm not even gonna finish typing that since I can't spell. But there's a Fort Wayne, Missouri too. They're saying Fort Wayne, Indiana, Fort Wayne, Detroit. There's a Fort Wayne, Missouri. I've been there. But yeah, I know what you're saying. It's just so aggravating when you hear this stuff. It's kind of like if you're in a location and something touches you, but you don't have it on a camera and you don't have it on a recorder saying I'm touching you. It makes you angry because I'm excited because something touched me, but I'm mad because I can't prove it.
Exactly. Oh, and Kat has the proper spelling of Missouri there for us. M-O.
Oh, okay. Hey, I like them abbreviated versions anyway. But yeah, something touches you or something, and you're like, crap, how am I going to tell people? They're going to say, it's kind of like the big one that got away.
Exactly.
Misery. But, it's stuff like that is just, and we were on the 5th floor, and the story is that a nurse hung herself right outside of room 205, I want to say, 205, 206, something like that. Okay, the story is that she hung herself from the pipes outside of the room because she had gotten pregnant out of wedlock by one of the doctors or so, and he refused to acknowledge his part in this. And back in them days, that was a no-no.
Right.
So she supposedly hung herself on these pipes, and there was a story about another woman being pushed out of the window in that same room there next to where she hung herself. Now, also I heard that they took her in there and they aborted her baby. Anyways, all the stories. But I got an EVP right there where she supposedly hung herself, and right outside of that room that said, "Help me walk."
Oh, wow.
Now, to enlighten people on what they did there. Some of you may not know, trying to cure the tuberculosis patients, they used all kinds of crazy stuff. They would sit them outside. They had like these balconies that went around this building that were like these big balconies, and they would sit them out there because the fresh air would help them. And I have pictures of them sitting out there with snow blowing in on them and snow on their blankets and everything, and they were outside in this. Also, they would do things like stack sandbags on their chest trying to compress their lungs. And they would remove some of their ribs to give the lungs room to expand. Okay, now, if you remove your ribs, you can't stand straight and you ain't going to walk worth crap.
Right.
So I could understand the lady saying, help me walk.
Exactly.
It made sense, and I'm like, at first I'm like, help me walk, and then it dawned on me, this was probably one of the patients who had the surgery where they removed some of her ribs or something and she couldn't walk, like she wanted to. So, I mean, that was good. I love that. Yes, Waverly Hills, Brian. And that was basically the height of what we got. Well, no, I take that back. I got an EVP of a moan, and it sounded just like something right out of a cartoon. In the cartoons where they do the ghost cartoons, and you hear them go, woo. Right. It sounded exactly like that. Huh. And it was kind of low, and I enhanced it a little bit where I could hear it better, and it sounded just like something out of a cartoon. I ought to send you that EVP sometime if you hear it.
Right.
I mean, it was creepy. It really was. Ooh, like somebody in pain or something.
Right. That reminds me of one that I got a couple years ago. That you hear a moan like that, and then a door slam.
Right.
But it's not like a normal moan. Have you ever been around someone when they died, when they drew that last breath, and you hear that death moan?
I was in the room with my mother and watched her take her last breath.
It's got that very distinct sound to it.
Yeah.
I picked up a EVP at a place that was a rehab center and an asylum. And I caught that. It sounds like a man, and you hear what sounds like a death moan. And then immediately afterward, you hear a door slam.
Well, no, that one sounded like a man. Like I said, it was like, ooh, But my mother, and it's hard to talk about it because, I watched her do it. And when she took that last breath, and it's like, and kind of, that's a sound you just don't want to hear.
Right.
Right.
It very unnerving, to say the least. That's. I'll ask this: what would you say is the most comical EVP you've ever got?
Comical. Okay, I'll give you one. This creeped my daughter out, but I thought it was funny. Of course, I've got that kind of sense of humor.
Right.
But her and my son-in-law, who was her fiance at the time, lived in an apartment up here in town. And it was an old house that had been converted, had like one upstairs apartment, two downstairs. Well, they come over to my house one night, and they're like, we've got this shadow figure. We've seen it, here, there, and yonder in the house. Will you come over here to investigate? Of course, my son-in-law, he was kind of into it too, so he wanted to do it with me. and I almost feel bad saying this now, but because I don't provoke as a rule, but I did that night because I knew something was there, and it just wasn't. I could feel it. It just wasn't cooperating. But anyway, make a long story short, I got two good EVPs in there. One was in the living room. They got a fireplace just before you go into the hallway that goes, where the two bedrooms are, and the kitchen and all that. And I'm standing there in the living room. I'm using my analog recorder because I love this thing. But I said, "Can you make a sound?" And I knocked on the fireplace, like that.
Right.
I said, "Can you knock on something like this?" And I knocked on the fireplace. When I played the recording back, I had two voices on there. One was male and one was female. And the female said, "Get him."
Huh.
And the male said, "We've got him between us."
Oh, wow.
And then later, uh, and this was a different night because I actually investigated it twice, but we had one of my daughter's friends over there that let us borrow her. At the time, I didn't even have a camera.
Mm-hmm.
And she borrowed one from her grandparents and brought it over and let us use it. And we got two good EVPs this time, and one of them is definitely a Class A. But we had left the recorder in the little bedroom in the back there, and we shut the door. And we were sitting in the kitchen smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee and talking and carrying on, laughing, cutting up. My son-in-law went back in there to get the recorder, and you'll hear him when we played it back. You'll hear the door open because it had the old knobs. They made a lot of noise when you open them. You hear the knob turn, the door opens. He goes in there, and you'll hear him say, "I'm back. Where's the recorder at?" And right before he said, "Where's the recorder at?" you hear, "Go away."
Wow.
It was plain. I mean, very plain. Okay, but that's not the creme de la creme. The best one was he was telling me about them leaving a candle on the kitchen table.
Mm-hmm.
And it was burning, but they had to go somewhere, so they blew the candle out. It's sitting on the kitchen table.
Mm-hmm.
He said when they got back, it was in the bathroom and it was lit.
Oh, wow.
Okay, well, the bathroom's right around the corner from the kitchen there, a little bitty bathroom in there. So we went in there, and he was telling me about the candle sitting on the bathtub being lit and blah, blah, blah. We turn around, and I come back out into the hallway, and he's right behind me. And I said, "Where the hell are you hiding at?" And when I played that thing back, it said, "Right behind you," and had an evil little laugh at the end of it.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
And what really ticks me off is that tape went missing.
Oh, no.
I cannot find it. I keep all the tapes, and I could not find that tape. It's gone.
That
I had it
sounds like my
labeled
luck.
where it was, where we were at. I had it labeled where we were at and everything, and it's just gone.
Oh, no.
But that was the best one though. Right behind you. And I was laughing at my daughter. Was like, "Oh my God!" She was about to have a daggone fit, and I'm laughing. I'm like, "That's so cool."
Right. That's a typical reaction.
Because that's what you're doing it for. That's what you want.
Right.
And she said, "Oh my God, oh my God!" I said, "Calm down. I thought it was cool." And then she wouldn't let us come back and investigate no more because you're going to tick it off and it's going to be all after me. I said, "You're the one that asked me to come do this. But it was funny. I was laughing. I said, "That's so cool."
Right. That's. I can imagine from the sound of it the look on her face when she heard that.
Oh man, she was like, "Oh my," and her eyes were about as big as $50, and she's like, "Oh my God."
So now, well, now that brings me to another question, and this is one that is I always enjoy this myself. Um, you go in. Some people are going to call you, and they're going to want you to come out and check their home out or check out their business because they're getting these reports or whatever. Even though they call you out to investigate, they're still very skeptical, but they're still not quite sure that it's not real.
Right.
So even though they're very skeptical, they're going to call you out and investigate anyway. And you do find activity. So you're doing your follow up with them, and you're showing them what you found during the investigation and everything. What would you say is the funniest reaction you've got from a client when you've showed them some compelling evidence that you found?
Well, I would have to say my daughter when I played that EVP. That was classic, and I wish somebody would have took a picture of that because the expression on her face was just priceless.
Right.
I'm not kidding. And Brian said Boot Brothers done one on Waverly Hills. Yes, they did. And I did an interview with Christopher St. Booth on my show, and he's a really cool guy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we and that face, I'm telling you. And then she said, and I said, well, we'll have to come back tomorrow and finish this up. No, you're not. You're gonna make it mad. It's gonna come after me.
Right. And there's nothing better than the look of seeing someone at that very moment that they go from being a skeptic to being a believer.
Well, see, that's the thing, though. She
Right.
wasn't a skeptic necessarily, but she really hadn't heard nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so she's like, "Oh my God!" It's just so priceless, though. I'll give anything to have a picture of her, the expression on her face, so I can show it to her every time she comes over. You remember this?
Right. Right. That well, and something I was wanting to ask you about on while we're talking about EVPs and things like that is how do you feel about things like like the SB7 Spirit Box,
Oh, the
Echo Box?
PSB7.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Never used one.
Never used one.
Now I do have Echo Box on my phone,
Really?
and
Oh.
I tell you what I did. I tried an experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Me and my son-in-law over at his house. I downloaded a white noise app, and I played it along with the Echo Box, and we had the Echo Box run through a sound system.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we were picking up responses. Um, One of them was talking about a grave in the yard, and we got 2 or 3 names on demand. So I mean, really, that's how you know when something's working is if you can get. Uh, we asked how many spirits were in the room, and it said 3, and then we asked, what are your names, and we got 3 names.
Right.
So you can't. It's hard to deny that, when you get it. So, but it was an experiment, like I said, with a white noise app, and we had it run through a sound system, where because you can't turn Echo Box up all the way without running it through external speakers, or it'll squelch real bad.
Right. Right. Now
So
I
we
will
run
say.
it.
I will say this about EchoVox. We've been testing it for the past several months, and Donald there in the chat room, he can vouch for this. Donald's our operations manager. He's one of them that I can't brag on him enough. He he does wonders for the team. He helps us out in a lot of ways, and he's been helping us with the testing on it. And we've tried it on several investigations, and he can vouch for this, that some of the results we've got from it have been just fascinating.
And
One, one
you
in
will,
particular.
because it's different from like the PSB7. It don't play radio stations. It don't skip through radio stations.
Right, right. And instead of the possibility of picking up a DJ making an announcement or something like that,
Exactly.
it's a live microphone with just some white noise. And normally I'm the most skeptical person you'll ever meet when it comes to phone apps, because
And I was too.
right, but that one is one that we've been given a serious look to.
And I sit there and run it here in my bedroom one night, and I unhooked my computer speakers and plugged them in there so I could turn it up. Because, like I said, it'll squelch real bad if you don't. But I sit here and let that thing run, and I'm sitting here, and I'm just casually talking. Now, I haven't mentioned this yet, so everybody, I have a friendly spirit that lives here in the house, but it stays in this bedroom most of the time. My wife actually saw the shadow figure of it. I haven't seen it, but I know when it's here, my dog goes nuts and gets under my desk, won't come out.
Hmm.
But anyway, I sit there and run this thing one night, and I'm, talking. I said, "Well, are you in here right now?" And I knew it was because my dog was doing its funny little thing, and I said, "Do you hang out in here a lot?" And I got yes, pretty very very plainly, and I don't remember. I asked a few more things, but I got a couple of hits on there. I got yes, and I asked. Uh, I think it was. I asked age, and it was like 65.
Right.
And I've been told by someone who claims to be a medium that said that he was an elderly gentleman that was here. Like uh, he didn't live here. He was here before the house was built. That's what he was saying. But now I got 65, and that would put it. This house is probably. I'm gonna say this house is probably pushing over 100. So I don't see that, but
Right. And I will say this as far as the Echo Vox goes. One particular case that we got some extremely good validation for it was an investigation we did back in August or September. Uh, we were it was a place that Donald had investigated before and knew quite a bit of history on. But it was my first time investigating there, and I set up the Echo Vox, and we were doing an EVP session with it. And as we're asking questions and answers, uh, Donald had told me a little bit of the history, and he asked a particular question about one of the people who died there. He asked for a name, and the exact correct name comes through. Then he asked for a cause of death. The correct cause of death comes through. He asked for who's in the basement, and that comes through correctly. And how did they die? And that cause of death comes through correctly. I mean, it was mind-blowingly accurate. So that was when I started to really start using it as a tool. And I won't say that I'm 100% sold on it, but I'm about 98% there.
well, what I like about it is, like I said, it's not, and Donald's mentioning the PSP 7 is good too. I've never tried one. I'd like to, but you know how us poor folks are. We can't afford that stuff. Anyway, uh, the Echo Box uses snippets of voice that are all run into like a continuous uh, file.
Hmm.
So you're not going to get full words unless something is saying a full word. So it almost makes it a guaranteed thing. If you get a full word out of it, you can pretty much count on it being, an EVP because you just don't get full words. It's just all it is just little snippets.
Right, right. And I don't know how much you've used it, but or how much you've used the Echo Vox, but I've even had different languages come through, and I've picked up different accents coming through it.
Now
That
that would be cool. I'd like to do that.
that when we were using Echo Vox on one particular investigation, and it on the same investigation actually, we had a lady come through with a British accent, and then we had a male come through that was speaking Spanish.
Wow.
And I asked the homeowner about if she knew anything about any history of a woman that had a British accent that might have lived in that area. And she confirmed that two houses down, there was a woman that used to live there that had a British accent that had died several years earlier. And
Wow.
there,
Cool.
there were several Mexican immigrants that lived on the block as well that had lived and died in that area. It was quite fascinating. And
Now,
well,
I've got to ask you,
mhm.
what is your thoughts on the obelisk? Because I don't put much faith in it.
I with the obelisk, I don't have much faith in those either.
I think it's just it spits out random words, and you might be lucky enough to just have something come out of it that sounds close to what you were asking. You know, I just don't believe too much in those things that spit out words on a random basis like that.
Right. I'm not exactly sold on those. It just it's too that's one that it would take something very, very compelling to really truly sell me on it. I'm not going to say that it couldn't work, but I'm skeptical. I'll just say that. But
King, the Echo Box and the Spirit Box are pretty much just like using a recorder. The only difference is you get the stuff in real time. At least that's the way I see it. I don't see it as being like a Ouija board or anything like that.
right, so well, what would you say your thoughts on the Ouija board are?
I don't have one. I don't want one, and I don't use one.
Right, right.
I mean, pretty simple, you know.
I would agree, and when people ask me about it, you know, there's always the argument about, oh well, it's harmless, or no, it's dangerous, or you know, there's both sides of that argument. But
Right, and
uh,
yeah, people saying, well, if you know how to use one and how to close it when you use it, it's not a problem and everything, you know. I don't buy that whole closing thing.
right, and aside from that, I mean, at the same time, someone could, you know, it could be said that using a you know, something like a Echo Box or a Spirit Box or even an EVP session may be similar as far as you're attempting to make that connection.
Right.
But you know, even despite any other reservations that you might have about the Ouija board, um, there's really no scientific or no solid evidence that you can get from an Ouija board. Whereas from EVP or something, you have a solid recording.
Right.
That's always been my personal opinion.
Somebody was making an argument with me about something the other day, and I used EVPs as an example. You know, they were saying something, you know, and I said, well, you can't prove that. But when you get an EVP to a direct question on a recorder, that's proof that you actually talked to something that wasn't there.
Right.
Or it was there, but you couldn't see it.
Right. Absolutely. You know, polyester clothing doesn't rustle around and make intelligent responses, or you know,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
wind
yeah.
doesn't.
Wind ain't gonna say my name's Andy,
Right.
which was an EVP we got. I asked, you know, for a name, and it said Andy.
Right.
Now,
Oh.
this was at my daughter's house where they live now. They live out in the country, next town down from me to the south there. And we were out there just goofing around one night, me and him, and I had my recorder out there, and um, I had my uh, little Sony night shot with me,
Hmm.
which and I feel ignorant as hell because I forgot to turn the night shot on. And I'm like, man, it's not showing up, you know, and everything. And I couldn't. I knew I turned it up. Well, what it was is I always leave it on night shot, so somehow it got turned off and I didn't know it. I'm like, my night shot's not working. I can't see anything. And but anyway, we had been out, and there's a field out behind his house, and it's fenced off, and there's a gate there, and there's a little shed back there where he keeps his lawnmower and stuff like that. Well, he said that he was out there and putting the lawnmower up one day, and he got a weird feeling like something was out there. So we go out there with the camera and the recorder, and we're standing out there, talking to apparently nothing because nothing was answering. But when we were coming back, as we were coming through the gate, I made the comment, you can follow us up here, but you can't stay. You got to go back.
Right.
Well, right there when we came through that gate is where I said that, so I know where the EVP was. And the EVP said, I belong here.
Wow.
Okay, then we go up further, and there's a tree out there in his yard, which is up, not far from the front porch there, or side porch or whatever. Right about when we got there, a voice came right out of the air and said, I ain't staying.
Huh. And it's hard to say that those aren't intelligent responses.
Well, the thing about that one was it was a disembodied voice come right out of the air, right in our ear. And the recorder also picked it up, so I had it on my recorder, and I have the EVP saved.
Wow.
And that tripped us out. He's like, did you say that? I said, no, I didn't say that. Why would I say that?
Wow.
That was a trip. That was the first disembodied voice I ever got. And it was just wild, It's those unexpected things that make it all worthwhile.
Right. I would definitely agree. So what would you say was your most interesting experience while you were on an investigation? Or I'll say most intense experience while on an investigation.
Well, I've never had anything to push me or do any of this kind of stuff, so I've really never had nothing that just scared the bejesus out of me. I would have to say when we caught the transparent figure on the IR camera, that was probably the most intense because I was sitting there watching a monitor. I saw it when it happened. I'm like, wow. And it was me and one of our other teammates and the girl that lived in the house were in there watching the monitor, and Dusty was in the actual room where we caught it at, laying in the corner over on the floor doing EVP stuff, and he didn't know it was happening. And we saw it go by the monitor, and I'm like, did you see that? They jump up, run in there, explaining to him what they saw. And you see this thing moving. It actually moves when they first come in there, you see it turning like it's going out the door. They come in and it's leaving. But it was just wild catching it, on that monitor, seeing it happen live.
Right, I can imagine. Well, and something that I meant to ask you at the beginning of the show and kind of didn't was what really sparked your interest in the paranormal? How did all of this kind of come to be?
Well, when I was 9 years old, I saw my first spirit. A full-blown apparition, live looking as you and me walking down the sidewalk.
Oh, wow.
My brother and I was coming home from playing down the road there. We were coming up the sidewalk, and right in front of my neighbor's house, his mother walked past us, calling for him.
Mm-hmm.
And how I knew it couldn't be his mother calling for him is she had died 2 weeks earlier.
Oh, wow.
But it was her, and she was wearing the same dress that I seen her in the last time I seen her alive. Huh. And I turned into the yard there and turned around and looked. Of course, wasn't nothing there. I go in the house and I'm all excited. I'm telling my grandmother and them, I'm like, I just saw a ghost. I saw Bud's mother walk past us on the sidewalk. And she's like, you didn't see that? There ain't no such thing. Well, after you hear enough of that, you don't see stuff anymore.
Right.
Or at least I didn't. I quit experience, but I had like 2 or 3 experiences before that happened. But finally, it got to the point where I just didn't see stuff anymore. But I knew this wasn't a figment of my imagination, and so all the time I was growing up, I would think about that every now and then. And I'm like, I can't believe they didn't believe me. Of course, when you're a kid, you think they're supposed to believe you. Why would I lie about that? Anyway, I got into watching taps. And this is the way a lot of people, I guess, they really start getting involved. They watch shows like that. The only difference is I don't do things the way they do. That's a TV show, and I'm smart enough to know better.
Right.
But, and of course, back when taps first came out, back in 2004, around there somewhere, they were more real. They debunked stuff. They did, what they claimed to do.
Right.
So I'm sitting there watching this show, and I'm thinking, that's how I proved to myself that I know what I saw was real. I'm going to go out and capture it myself. I'm going to get it where I can show people and say, this is what I saw. And so that basically was how I got born into it. And of course, the first team that I joined up with was, I won't even go there. It was bad. It was bad. And then my daughter and my son-in-law kind of did a little stuff ourselves there for a little bit. Then, quite by accident, my daughter and my grandson was walking down the road, and Dusty happened to stop and give them a ride, and somehow the subject come up, and she said, oh, my dad's into that. Well, he gave him his phone number and told her to give it to me, and I called him, we met up, and after that it was all history.
Oh, wow.
So that's how Half Past Dead got born, so to speak.
Well, and that's just by that sheer coincidence, so to speak, it all came about. That's
yeah,
awesome.
And it all came together, and we've been doing this, him and I, probably for 3 years now. And well, actually, I know it's been 3 years, but off and on all together, I've probably tinkered around with it for about 12, but it didn't get really, I guess, real until we hooked up, and got our team going and everything, because everybody is interested, but nobody's loyal, I mean,
Right.
when it gets down to it. Everybody's like, oh yeah, I want to do that, And like I said, if they go on one investigation, you don't get anything, you ain't gonna hear from them no more.
Right. And then finding serious investigators that are willing to commit the time and effort.
Exactly. And you've got some that want to investigate because that's exciting.
Right.
But when it comes to the hours of review, they can't. They got to work, or they got this going on, or they got that going on,
Right. And that's something that most teams run into. And it's hard because, review, I tell people all the time that you can figure for every camera, and this is factoring in multiple cameras on each investigation.
Right. If you're running a DVR, you've got hours of DVR video. You've got your handheld video. You got your however many recorders you're running, and by the time you get through all this stuff, you put a good day into it anyway, if not more.
Right. Right. I usually tell people that for every hour of audio or video, that you can expect about roughly 3 hours to review it, because you're having to, if you think you see something, you have to go back, rewind it, review it.
Or if you think you heard something, you got to go back, you got to mark it, and then you got to, and by the time you get through your audio recorder, you've done spent 2 or 3 hours right there.
Exactly, exactly. And good, because just 1 hour of audio, you hear something, you're not sure if, you think it might have been an EVP, but you want to go back, and you've listened to it time and time again, and you want to make sure that it's not the wind, or it's not something that can be explained. So you're listening to the segment before, and what's going on there, what's leading
Right.
up to it, and yeah, it definitely gets time consuming very fast. So
It will eat you up. And
it will.
that's what I'm saying. Nobody wants to put that time in. Everybody wants to do the investigating and everything, the exciting part. And then once that's done, they're done until the next one. Then they're ready to go. Well, when we going to investigate now?
Right, right. And uh, what would you say has been probably the hardest thing about getting a team together? Would you say it was maybe getting the equipment going, or you know?
Well, usually when somebody comes in, they don't have anything. Okay, they won't have a recorder, they won't have a camera, they won't have anything. And
Mhm.
I tell people, when they start talking about all this, well, I want to join the team and do this. I said, well, go get your recorder. At least have a recorder when you show up. If nothing else, have a recorder. And one guy, we actually have one guy that did. He went and got him a recorder and stuff. And he had a little digital camera and stuff. And he actually turned out to be fairly decent. And then he up and disappeared. And then he messaged me on Facebook one day and says, I'd like to come back and do this again. I said, what happened to you last time? Where'd you go? And if you did come back, how long are you going to be here this time?
Right, right. And there's always the the not knowing. There's some investigations you may be there overnight, some it may be several nights. And
And yeah, and we picked up, we have one female teammate and me and Dusty, and that's our team right now.
mm,
Every now and then somebody joins in with us, but most time it's us three. And we picked her up on an investigation actually.
oh
We
wow.
were investigating at a friend of hers' house, and she showed up, and of course, she's there watching what's going on. She's like, I've always wanted, been interested in this. And so I got talking to her, and I said, why don't you help us a little bit here and see how you like it, what you think, So she went, we took turns doing EVP stuff with her, and she was actually pretty good. And so after that, she just joined up with us, and she's been the one that stuck with us, through thick and thin. So
Well, then that's good. It's interesting the way that you meet certain people, and you pick up people for your team, and how that all comes about. Like you'd mentioned before, how you'd met Dusty, from him giving your daughter and her husband a ride. That's
I was her and my grandson.
oh, her and your grandson. How just by that sheer coincidence. So it is amazing.
And a lot of times, and I preach this to people because I know from experience, don't pick family members to be on your team.
Right.
I mean, it's okay if they are, but I'm just saying, as a rule, don't go looking for your family members to be on your team. They'll be the least loyal ones in the whole bunch, and expect you to understand every time they tell you they can't go because, the cat died or whatever. Uh, and not knocking anybody if you got a cat, but just form of speech. Uh, they'll make up the weirdest, silliest little excuses why they can't go. Or
Right.
And then you got the ones, and I got to bring this up because this happened to us on this last one we did where the snake was. This other guy that wanted to join up with us, well, he came on that investigation with us, and the whole time, well, I can't say the whole time, but 95% of the time that we were there, he was constantly on the phone because his wife was texting him. You done yet?
No.
Y'all done yet? Done yet? That would drive me. I would have to go into. That would drive me nuts. I'm not kidding. But my wife don't do that. She's pretty good about it. She doesn't like that I do it, but she doesn't try to stop me from doing it, and she doesn't hinder me when I'm doing it. But this woman was texting him every 2 minutes, and I'm not even kidding.
Wow.
And so when I told you about we stopped at McDonald's and we was talking, he rode with me, right? So he couldn't go until I went. And we were up there. We were talking about. Well, he walked off over there by himself, and I saw him doing the texting thing, so I knew what was going on. He come up over. I said, "Mama mad at you?" Yeah. I said, "Well, I guess we better get you home then."
Yeah, I'll let everybody in on a little secret. The whole thing about cell phones putting off EMFs, that's not really true. That's just something we come up with about putting them on airplane mode and turning them off during investigations for people like that. Okay, I might be lying about that.
Well, I mean, I don't normally turn off my phone in case an emergency happens because that's the only way they can reach me. But but my wife won't call me,
Right.
Unless something does go on, or and normally other people don't call me late at night like that, so I don't worry too much about anybody calling or anything or interfering. But
Right. Well, and one thing about it though is really when you have to truly be mindful of the cell phone is when it's really critical is like during EVP if it's going off, or if you're taking EMF readings or something like that. But outside of that, it's not going to have much effect. I mean, it's cell phone in your pocket's not going to affect a picture that you take or what's on your camera.
Heck, I even use mine to take pictures sometimes.
Right. So I have seen some people that were overly militant about the no cell phone policy, but
Right.
you have to use common sense.
Well, I mean, you do things respectful to the rest of the people on your team and to the client that if you're at a client's house or whatever. You try to be respectful with the phones and all that stuff. Like I said, I don't turn mine off because if emergency come up, they couldn't get a hold of me.
Right.
But other than that, I'm not constantly texting back and forth, or my wife texting me, "You done yet?"
Right. I haven't seen you post many selfies from investigations on Facebook. So you'll have to work on that.
Yeah, right. I don't have a lot of pictures on there. I don't do selfies that much. I mean, I'd hate for somebody to look at my picture on their computer screen and it crack or something like that.
So just do somebody else's.
Yeah. See, and it's like when you go on one of those dating sites, and you find a picture of like, what was the guy that was holding up the planet? You know who I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
And they used to do the thing, "Don't be a 97-pound weakling," and it showed the Atlas.
Yes.
So with the big body build, you put a picture like that on there, you said to him, "Yeah, this is."
Yep.
Atlas, yeah. See, Brian said Atlas. Yeah, he knew what I was talking about.
Yep. That's it. So, well, we don't have a whole lot of time left. So, Do you have any events coming up or anything like that?
Not really. Now we've been talking about trying to set up to do a little event up here at the Walmart and everything to collect for Wounded Warriors Project, and hopefully we're going to get that thing going. We're going to wait till spring hits when it's warmer, where you can sit outside there, and we're going to do a little thing to hopefully collect for them guys because they really do need it, and it's
That's
really
awesome.
sad when you think about how our veterans are treated nowadays. I know this ain't paranormal, but I see so much going on with this that just ticks me off, and I don't know if you've been keeping up with the 90-year-old veteran that they arrested twice for feeding the homeless down in
Yes.
Florida. That just burns me up.
Yes.
I mean, you just want to go down there and grab this mayor by the nape of the neck, smack him around a little bit, and say, "What's wrong with you, fool?"
Right. I agree. All the things going on in the world, and he's worried about that.
Right. When you think about it, asylums and all that stuff were originally built as poorhouses.
Mhm.
And that's where they would put the poor people who had no means to take care of themselves, and they would, feed them, and they had a roof over their head. Why can't they do that now instead of making a law like that? Well, if you feed a homeless person, I'm going to arrest you.
Mhm. That's and to me that's absolutely ridiculous. I I can't imagine any town, regardless of size, that doesn't have problems with theft, some type of drug use, some type of actual criminal activity that they're worried about a 90-year-old veteran feeding homeless people.
Exactly.
But we're reading about it in the news, and that's ludicrous to me.
Prison inmates have TVs, coffee pots, you name it, microwaves probably, and everything else in their daggum cells. But you can't feed a homeless person because that's against the law.
Right.
There's something bad wrong with that picture.
I definitely agree. I definitely agree. And that's one thing that I really respect about you and your team is how much you do support the veterans. I respect that 100% as a
Well, you
veteran
got to
myself.
think, the reason why we're able to do this show and everything right here and right now is because there's people out there in uniform protecting us and giving us that right.
That's right.
So, if not for them, none of this stuff wouldn't be possible.
I absolutely agree.
And if the way things are going with, and I won't even mention his name, uh, we'll be lucky if we don't have a king slash dictator before the next few years is up.
It makes you wonder sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway, enough political stuff.
And next we're going to talk about religion. No.
Right.
Well,
And the
and
Buddha.
right. And if someone wants to get in touch with your team or find out some more information about you, what's the best way for them to do that?
We have a website at www.halfpastdead.weebly.com.
Okay, and I know y'all are on Facebook as well.
And we have the page on Facebook, Half Past Dead Paranormal Investigations on Facebook. I have a community on Google Plus, Half Past Dead Paranormal Unity on Google Plus.
And you
And the Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio page on Facebook, and the radio channel on YouTube.
definitely, um, and you've got that. And one thing that that I truly respect too is you're one of those people that are out there. You're all about para-unity, working together with other teams,
And that's how it should be.
yes, that's what it's all about.
There's too many people that are in the paranormal field for the wrong reasons, and that is they want to be number one so that a TV network will notice them and they'll get to be famous and make a lot of money.
Absolutely.
It's not about helping a client. It's not about getting the evidence, proving the fact that what we already know is out there is out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about looking good for the network. Well, you can't do that if you're inviting all these other teams in with you because they might steal your glory,
Right.
So yeah, it's with me it's about unity. I'm about and I will work with any team anywhere, anytime if I can get there.
Right. And that's one of those things that we don't see enough of. So we appreciate the people like you that are out there. So.
Well, and people like you now, so you toot your own horn. I don't mind.
Well, it's like I tell people about the show is I try to bring people on that are doing things right out there, and that's why we bring the people like you out there that are setting a good example, and hopefully people coming into the field will follow and work together and learn from each other. And
you got to watch, and I'm going to mention this because it happened to me recently. There are people out there who will trash you, run your name in the ground, for whatever reasons. Maybe their mama didn't spank them enough when they were a kid. I don't know. But I had this group called OSB, which is one step beyond paranormal skeptical research, is what they go by.
Mm-hmm.
They did a podcast, and they didn't know me from Adam, but they found out that I was friends with a couple of people they didn't like.
Right.
So they did a podcast where they trashed me up really bad, and the name of the podcast was Southern Fried Paranormal,
Mm-hmm.
which was meaning me because I'm a Southern country boy.
Right.
And you gotta, I'm gonna continue doing what I do. I'm not gonna let that eat my lunch. So, really they wasted a lot of time. But I'm just saying, for people out there, if that happens to you, don't worry about it because people like that are just ignorant. And it's probably because they can't do it themselves and they're jealous of the people that do.
I agree. We had a similar experience, and it happened. But about a year ago. This was from a group called Worst Paranormal, and
That name ought to tell you something.
right, right. And if this came right after there was a local newspaper that did an article about us, and it went nationwide. It hit the Washington Times and went all over the country. Last I think the final count was it went something like 107 newspapers that I knew of, and
That's awesome.
yeah, it went all over, and hit countless websites and everything. So we got a lot of attention, and it was for something positive. It was one of those articles. Hey, we've got this group. They're doing this, and it was really positive.
Right.
And immediately after that, we got that they wrote this big thing on us saying that we were fake and all of this, and
Yeah, see, that's exactly what they were doing to me.
right, and of course they said that they had investigated our evidence, and so the only thing that I asked them is, well, when did you investigate it? No one ever contacted us or examined our evidence. You looked at our site, but you never actually investigated it. You're just making these claims. And for everyone that they asked, all I simply did was sent people straight to their site for them to read the article for themselves. And
Right.
that proved my argument in itself. And so to people that come across those type of things, if you look at if you listen to the podcast or you look at the articles, and it doesn't take very long to see the motives behind why
Exactly.
they're talking about the other teams.
Now, see, these people got thrown out of Rolling Hills Asylum. They got thrown out of Iron Island Museum because of the way they do things.
Right.
You know, which is not ethical. Well, so then they get ticked off, and what do? They go do a podcast and trash places like Iron Island, and I know those people are a great bunch of guys. And Linda, that owns that place up there, she's really good, and they do a lot of stuff to benefit their community and stuff like that. You know, they're not bad people, but they trashed them because they acted like ignorant morons, and they got threw out. So you know that's the kind of thing you deal with.
Exactly. So any kind of information that's out there, and especially when it comes to something like that, you always have to consider the source.
Exactly.
So, but anyway, I certainly do appreciate you coming on the show tonight, Roger. I've really enjoyed it.
Oh, I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
I think me and you could sit here and talk for hours.
I don't get to talk to too many people about the invisible snake, so.
That was the highlight of my night. I'm going to tell you. So
that's something you tell your grandkids about. Man, we wrestled a 15-foot invisible anaconda out of my house one time.
Definitely.
The inmate ghost killed it for us.
Right. Good thing you had the inmates ghost there.
Yeah, right. Good thing he follows me everywhere. I said, good thing you ain't him around.
Right. If he was still locked up, y'all would probably been donors.
Yeah, Snake would have got him.
So anyway, and I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, I hope I can get you on the show again real soon.
I would enjoy that very much. We had a big time. I had a lot of fun. And you guys, if you want to tune in, I'm on every Monday night at 7 Eastern till 10 Eastern. So awesome. Come and check us out. We have a lot of fun on there too. We talk about paranormal and we have a laugh or two. We just have a good time and we're all laid back. So come check us out.
Definitely. Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in, and we'll look forward to seeing y'all next week. And thank you, Roger. And everyone, have a good night.
Good night, y'all.
Thank you for listening to Paranormalities and Ponderings with the C.A.S.P.I.R Paranormal team. Brought to you by the Paranormal King Radio Network. We hope you enjoyed the show, and will tune in again next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Please be safe as you're out there, especially if you're investigating the paranormal. Take care, have a good night, and happy huntings. Thank you again from the C.A.S.P.I.R